Gallery view. Oh, okay, got it. Yeah,
Yeah,
got it.
let's put so that it's all of us.
Thank you.
Okay, so I don't know if any of you, well, Michelle and Jan were both present on Monday, and we pulled a card called, oh gosh, no, no, you are enough.
Enough.
Enough, that was it. So that got me really thinking about choices in terms of how our choices would change or what they would be if we considered ourselves to be enough, which I know we might on like a mental level sometimes we think of ourselves as being enough, but like deep down emotionally we perhaps don't align with that. So I've been thinking as well about choices because obviously it's such a huge expansive topic and it's one that I have felt that I needed to talk about tonight, but it's kind of choices come up in so many different ways, you know, whether it's what you're going to have for your dinner or big life choices or choices that you made in the past that you're still living with or that you wish you hadn't made or that you wish you had the option to make. It's just this huge rambling litany of different things. So I was trying to think, what's the thread to pull through choice? And the sort of the threads that I came out with were really the idea of choice as an illusion, and possibly being something that in many respects is something we believe we have, but actually there are so many other factors that affect it. And also the idea of that the card brought up the other day, that if we consider ourselves to be enough, are many of our choices kind of moot points? Do they become irrelevant, I suppose? So what I've made a few notes, so I'll just read through these. So the choices, I've tried to kind of break down the different kind of choices that we have in life. So the choices that we make that are presented to us and we feel like they must be taken. So for an example of that would be, well, I guess when you're at school maybe and the teachers are saying to you, okay, you need to choose your subjects or you need to choose what you're going to go to study at college or what you're going to be when you grow up, those kind of things. So they feel like big, huge life choices. And I guess particularly at that age, they feel deeply important to define yourself for the rest of your life. So in that sense, they become very ingrained. So I guess when we look at that as adults and as older people and we look back on that, we can kind of see that maybe there's an illusion around that whole thing. Like, why would we need to make that decision? And probably many of us have toyed with different careers and different ways of being that are not necessarily relevant to what felt like such a huge choice back then. However, that's how we kind of have choice presented to us, I guess, when we're young, as in it's this huge, big life defining thing. And actually, it's not set in stone. Okay, and then I think that then leads us on to choices that limit us. So we're not seeing the true expansive nature of possibility. So we might think that we have A, B, or C to pick from, but actually there are a whole other ways of being, other things we could choose, other possibilities and options, or even the option not to make a choice at all. And that then leads on again to choices that fit within our established understanding of the world. So as we change and grow and our understanding of the world grows, perhaps then our choices expand. So as we put to bed old worldviews or shift past the sort of understandings that our parents or school gave us, that we can begin to understand life differently and have even more choices or more options or feel like there's more possibility, or even understand that perhaps there's possibility in not making a choice. So it's moving away from that dualistic set in stone kind of thinking. Then there's the kind of choices where we think we have a choice and we might make the choice and we might really wholeheartedly pursue it and feel like that's the thing for us and that we absolutely have decided that. So it could be that we go for a job that we feel like we desperately want to be in, or a relationship or something like that. But for whatever reason, it's a false choice because the universe fails to play ball and rejects it, and doesn't allow for it. So it might be that a relationship doesn't work out, doesn't get off the ground, a job, you don't get the job, or you get the job and then you can't seem to, progress within it, those kind of things. So these false choices that we put our hearts and souls into and feel like they're so there for us, they're the things we want, and then they don't work out. And so I thought, what's going on there? And maybe it's just that we're not ready, or the situation isn't right, or perhaps we're being protected. So with all of these things in mind, how would being enough change our perception of our choices? So if we were in school and the teacher says, what do you want to be? And we consider ourselves to be enough at that stage, do we feel so much pressure to become, a butcher, baker, candlestick maker, or whatever it is that we feel like we need to be? Would we make the same relationship choices? Would we make the same work choices as we grow older? Would we limit ourselves in the way we sometimes do? Like we tend to think it has to be this or that, or I can only make this choice under certain circumstances. I did that to myself for years with my job. As an example, is that I can only leave my job when I make enough money to leave my job. But then it's when do you get to the point where you decide that that's the right thing, when perhaps when we look back at a different understanding of the world might be that if I have the time, then I can make enough money and trust the universe and blah, blah, blah. So it's changing the perception to be able to recognize that the choice is not that limiting, and not setting these rules upon our choices. So if we thought we were enough and our circumstances were enough, would certain choices feel less necessary? So I wanted everybody to just have a little think. I thought we'd just do a little experiment. So we'll take a few breaths actually before we do this and just kind of ground ourselves. Because then I'm going to do some like a group tarot reading, which I haven't done one quite like this before. So it'd be quite interesting to see what comes up. So we'll begin just by taking our 3 nice breaths, eyes closed, in through the nose, out through the mouth. And just whenever you're ready, if you begin. Okay, and just when you've sort of taken your breaths and you're ready, just have a little think about a choice that you have experienced or that you are currently experiencing, or that perhaps you want some guidance on, whether it's a past choice, a present choice, one that you might have to make in the future. Just something that's on your mind, because I think we all have these situations that come from a space that is initially, it feels like it's within our choice. So just have a little think about what that is for you. It might be a past choice that you regret or that you've not fully aligned with. It might be a choice moving forward, like what do you do about a certain thing? Or it might be coming to terms with a choice that you made in the past that you feel like either doesn't fit you anymore, or you wish that it would. There's so many different ways of thinking of your choice. So I'll just give you a minute to just think about what your choice is and just think of some questions around it. And perhaps as well, what I'm going to do is do like a little tarot reading for the choices. And so if you think of something that you maybe wouldn't mind talking about, if you can't think of something that you wouldn't mind, that you would be comfortable talking about, then that's fine. You don't have to talk about it. But if you do, then great. Okay, has everybody thought of a choice, a decision? Yeah. Okay, so what I'm going to do, Sorry, did someone say something then, or no? Okay. Because it's obviously there's just the 4 of you, but people will be watching it back. I'm going to say 1, 2, or 3. So there'll be 3 answers, a bit like I do on the Instagram. So hopefully each person will choose a number which will then relate to their question around their choice. And so that you guys will do that. And then the people watching back will be able to choose 1, 2, or 3 as well. So I'm just going to shuffle while you just take another deep breath and think about whether you want the answer for 1, 2, or 3. And then I'm going to use another deck as well for this one. So I'm using Cosmic Mother and Sacred Earth Oracle. Okay, so hopefully these cards will shed some light or give some feedback on your choice and the things you're thinking around it. Okay, so if you chose number 1, this is the cards for number 1. I love it. Right, okay, so we have the 7 of Wands and we have ready but waiting. And we have a picture there of a beautiful woman holding a dove, looking quite peaceful. So both of these cards to me, they sit really nicely together because she's kind of meditating and looking very calm, as is this person looks kind of aligned and in a place of peace. The 7 of Wands brings a bit of angst to it, as the tarot like to do. This really speaks to feeling like she's been forced into a position. So perhaps past circumstances, past situations have made her feel like the black sheep, the odd one out, the one who kind of easily gets picked on or misunderstood by other people. And it's put her in a place where she really has to go deep into herself and figure out who she is, where she's going, what her powers are. And it's from this quite powerful but calm and resigned and peaceful space that a decision will come, a choice will be made, something will shift. So it feels perhaps like an inability to move forward at the minute, feeling backed into a corner, but at the same time we have this ready but waiting. So even though life has backed you into a corner, you're kind of ready to move forward, to do something different. And it comes from this peaceful place of having been pushed out and having to rediscover oneself. So that's really interesting. 2 cards for number 1. Then I'll go on to number 2. I'll ask for some feedback after I've done them all, if anybody feels like they want to give it. Okay, this makes me smile. So if you chose number 2, by golly, right, so we have the 6 of Swords and we have a card called Friction. So the 6 of Swords is always about the journey to somewhere different, which in terms of choice, we can feel so limited when we're in this position. It's like we've been forced into a boat in a difficult circumstance. We're on the sea. We can't kind of get up and walk away from our current movement, our current predicament. However, we can use it to grow and to become different, to become more of ourselves, to overcome the current challenges so that we are stronger and more self-knowing by the time we meet the future, whatever the future brings. And friction kind of reminds me of that. Whilst this is very watery, this one is obviously friction. Friction creates fire. So from this space of awkwardness and difficulty and kind of, it's a bit irksome and not great, a fire will be lit. and fire leads to creativity, manifestation, big ideas. It can be also quite ferocious, as we know, and destructive, but this card doesn't look destructive to me. It looks kind of creative and bringing about new things. So if you chose number 2, I'd say this was very much about recognizing that you are slightly stuck, but that you're on your way somewhere, and that when the time is right, the difficulty of the situation will almost enlighten you. Okay. So as for choice number 3, people who chose 3, I love all of these kind of have a theme running through, which is of the changes we've made or we need to make, or the difficult places we find ourselves in. But I'll come to that in a moment. So this one, we have the 5 of Pentacles, and we have a card called Formation. The 5 of Pentacles is very much about feeling, again, not good enough, feeling like everybody else is doing so well, everybody else is doing this or doing that, and why am I not? Why can I not get on my throne, sorry? Why is there a cat on my throne? Why can't I seem to be able to get myself up off the floor and move the cat off the throne so I can sit on it? Not recognizing all of this wisdom in the background that is your life experiences. So it's that feeling less than. However, that is leading to formation. So from all of these cards, all of the tarot cards kind of represent us being in a icky, tricky, difficult situation in terms of our choices. But these cards then present something that's so much growth and power coming from that. So here we have formation. So whilst at the moment this little guy is sat on the floor feeling sorry for himself, it's leading to this kind of almost rebirth as he comes together and recognizes his power and his truth and moves into the next version of himself. So in terms of choices and in terms of all these cards, it's almost like looking at them, almost like the same message for each one, just with slight differences. So I am kind of loving that. And I guess what they're presenting to us is choice comes most potently when we are up against the wall, when we're fed up, when we've had enough of circumstances, ways of thinking, ways of being, feeling sad, feeling less than. It always in some way presents an opportunity to grow, to expand, and to evolve into the next passage of ourselves. So yeah, really weird how they are also kind of similar. So did anybody want to give any feedback? You don't have to go into the details of your choice or anything, but just maybe about the cards or how that kind of sat with them. Julia?
Yeah, I chose 2, and I felt like it did reflect where I am, because I've recently changed job, and it was more of a change of a job because I had to leave my other job for my mental well-being, and now I'm in a job which I wouldn't say I'm like, yay, great, I've got this new job. It's more of a case of I can do this job because I have transferable skills. And so I'm only in my 3rd week, and I'm just trying to sort of settle into it, but I still don't feel like it might be a really long-term job. I think maybe give it a year or something. So kind of being in that boat, and hopefully that kind of creativeness might come forward in the future. That's, quite reflective, I think.
Yeah, I think being in the boat, it particularly shows that you're headed somewhere else, but that for now, this is where you are. And the friction might come from the fact that it's not a job that you absolutely adore or would want to do forever. And that in time will start to rub and push you maybe towards different things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I chose 2 as well. So that kind of, I can see how it relates to my current circumstances. I'm kind of in, well, the summer holidays for a start, but midway between jobs, between book related stuff. It's all kind of going on, but none of it is, I'm not privy to much of it at the minute. So it's all going on outside of my control. So I'm very much in this boat, hoping to meet land at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyone else? Yeah, thanks, Anne.
So I chose number 1, and my question that's been something in my mind is something that it's more about a relationship moving forward, and whether it's still the right fit, whether it's something that I can cope with and evolve through. And it's caused a huge lot of angst. So when you were saying about the swords and the angst involved in that, and actually, but then the contrast to that being this place of stillness, which is actually where I've been forced to be this last year with COVID, to be still and be quiet and actually just stop trying to worry about what action to take and just be and allow things to evolve and reflect on where you're at, really resonated with where I'm at, and that kind of like feeling of, should I be taking definitive action about things all the time to change things, to move things, to force change, or will change happen in its own time if you're just patient and be still? So I think that really resonated with me.
Yeah, and just listening to you talking, I think what I've learned over the past few years is exactly that you're talking about, that when we try and force change or we try and make something happen, and even if it feels at the time like the absolute right thing to do, for me it's just failed like spectacularly, anything that I've tried to force. And I kept, at one point I was writing a lot about surrender, because it was like constantly having to surrender and trust this other force, that this is happening, that this ready but waiting thing is happening, that it's about being ready within, but you don't have to project that or make that happen, and allow it to sort of come to you.
Yeah,
it feels kind of unnatural.
it does, because I think we're so geared to think about understanding what we think is best for us and what we know is our kind of path that we want to tread and be proactive about it. But actually, sometimes we don't know what's best for us, and we do have to sometimes wait to see. And I think the thing I've come back to again and again, and I've advised other people about at work, is the idea that if you're struggling to make a decision, it's because it's not the right time. And you'll know when the right time is, because the decision will be easy to make.
Yeah.
And I think that you can't do some of the things that you need to do until you're absolutely ready to do them. So for example, I was thinking about when I left a job, but I was thinking about what Julia was saying about leaving work, and when I left teaching, I'd thought about doing it for a long time, but could think of a million reasons why, although I wanted to do it, I shouldn't do it, I couldn't do it, it was too difficult, and there were too many obstacles in the way. And then when I finally did do it, it was the easiest choice in the world, because there was no other option at that point. And so the decision was made for me by my circumstances and by the cost benefits. So if you're not clear, it's because your scales are still going like this. So you have to wait until they settle on one side or the other before you can actually make that decision and move forward. So if you're struggling with it, just sit tight and wait.
Yeah, that's what I've definitely come to realize. And I've also had the experience of trying to push decisions that I think are the right thing, and just being met with the most horrendous resistance and everything going wrong and life turning topsy-turvy, and just like you can't understand it, because you're trying to be proactive, and you're trying to make this choice, and it, for whatever reason, at any moment feels like the right choice, but for some reason you just block and failure, and it's like, okay.
Yeah. And I think there's a real conflict around, there's a narrative a lot currently out there about living your most authentic life and being authentic and true to yourself. And you can know that your current situation doesn't serve all aspects of who you are, and therefore does that mean that the life you're living is inauthentic?
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's a bit of a fallacy,
So
really.
dangerous, isn't it? Yeah.
I do think so. I think we have to acknowledge that we can have contrasting parts of ourselves and contrasting needs that can't all be met in the same place on the same path, and that you have these kind of messy crossroads that you reach where you're taking a little bit from everywhere, and you just kind of, it's not as neat as just saying, well, I'm only going to do things that honor who I am, and
Yeah, good
because
luck
who you
with
are
that.
is evolving.
The thing is, you have to honor so much as well as just who you are.
Yeah, if you're,
I'm saying that as a mother and as, you know, someone with a mortgage, and
yeah,
you know, there's a reality
and
there,
all sunshine
isn't there?
and rainbows and traveling around Bali, is it?
I mean, people do get to do that, but they tend to have saved up an awful long time and
Yeah.
probably don't have children, you know, that kind of thing. I don't know. And whilst I'm envious, I'm also not, because we all have our own path and we have to live it. And sometimes when we really surrender to our own circumstances, no matter how difficult they might feel at any moment, you do eventually, things shift and turn and stuff comes about that you could never have actually imagined in your own choice, in the list of choices you have in your own head as to what you think is right for you. You know, I think when we surrender and give over, other stuff comes forward that we could never have seen, or we grow and we change, and suddenly the stuff that we couldn't tolerate becomes comfortable in a really positive way sometimes.
Or it consolidates and you think, no, I can't continue to
Yeah.
do this the way I have been. And you get a definitive reason why that shouldn't continue. But if you don't know, that's the point, is you don't know. So stay tight until you do know.
Yeah. It just scares me when I see a lot of these posts of people, like you say, living their best lives and kind of being very critical of anyone who isn't just taking life by the horns and kind of packing everything in and leaving relationships and jumping on a plane to wherever. And, you know, I think just because they did that doesn't mean it's the right thing for everybody. And I always think there's a backstory to everybody's situation. You know, my brother, it's a random example, but it just springs to mind. He's been writing books, sci-fi, zombie, adventure, crime books for far longer than I've been writing, and he has been relentlessly devoted to it. And his books are really good. And he's now suddenly become quite successful. And it looks like one of those overnight success things. And now he's selling books about how to do what he's doing. And I think it's that whole backstory. I know his whole backstory of the years and years and the books and books and books and books he's churned out. But people will be buying his new books based on the fact that they could maybe get this overnight success, and it's not that kind of thing. There's a whole like adventure he's had to go on to get there, and you can't sell that adventure. You can't sell the life path. I mean, you can give them some brilliant top tips, but it's your own life path that you need to walk. And that's where, which card was it? This one sort of comes in, is that feeling the comparison vibe and feeling like you should be elsewhere. But actually, you're kind of okay right where you are. You have a throne, even within your own direst situations and circumstances. There's possibility.
Yeah, and I think that walking your own path and doing the work isn't as glamorous as it looks. You know, like what we were saying about whether it's people living their authentic life, going to Bali, or writing books and giving their top tips. That, like, for every single one of those person, there's a backstory, isn't there? And actually, the work of getting to that point where you can talk about finally making your decision and moving into a new phase or whatever, that's the exciting part of your life. But there's a lot of really boring grind before you get to that point, and a lot of hard work to do, and that's not very glamorous, so people don't post about it.
No, they don't. But I guess when they do, it comes across quite authentically and quite genuine. And then they probably wouldn't be trying to sell you their lifestyle. I guess they'd just be sharing what's happened.
Yeah.
So did anyone else have any feedback or thoughts about their cards in relation to their choice, Michelle or Jan?
Yeah, I don't mind. I chose 2, and we've got a bit of a situation at work. Our team is sort of crumbling a little bit at the moment. People are leaving. the managers left, and my question was, should I stay? Should I go? What should I do, really? So it was quite interesting, this journey to somewhere. But I had a conversation with one of the interim managers yesterday about sort of the future, really, you know, doing what we do, carrying on with our service, doing what we do. And it's the creative bit that made me think about what I was saying to her was, we can carry on doing what we've always done, but just do it in a slightly different way. Or it makes sense to me in my head. Sorry, you're looking puzzled, Alice, there. But
no, I'm not. I'm listening.
Those cards really spoke to me, and yeah, it's definitely sort of settled things in my mind.
Well, with this, I mean, just thinking about, you're in this boat, you're in it,
Yeah,
and you can't get out of it at the minute.
I can't. Yeah,
but what she's doing in that boat, if you can see, is she's reading, which is always sort of related, I guess, to self-help and to personal growth. But I guess as you relate it to your situation, it's maybe reading up and thinking about how you can shift and change the way things are done to make it suitable for the time being until you have a bit more of a path forward.
It's a tricky time as well, because we work term time, so we're sort of coming to the end of our year now. So we've got 6 weeks off to kind of ponder things as well. But when we come back together in September, I think there'll be a lot of planning moving forward. A lot of we'll be lighting that fire, that friction, and seeing what we can do and how we can move things along and make it better than it is now, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess there's not a lot you can do when you're about to sort of break up anyway.
No,
so you're on your boat, and then at some point it will ignite into something a bit more clear. Oh, good. Well, I'm glad that sits well. Michelle, any thoughts?
This has just been extraordinary, so that's why I'm being very quiet, because I know I've taken up a lot of space over the last few sessions, which I really appreciate, but I've just got so much out of it. I keep saying seesaw, Anne, right? Anne, is it? Yeah. I love that seesaw there, because there's something with that which is so brilliant, that imagery. I got so much out of what you were sharing. Like, you spoke directly to me in so many ways. So I have been doing a lot of writing. I've written like 3.5 pages just as we've been in this session, which has just helped me see some things really clearly. So thank you so much. I was just having a laugh before when you were talking about the 6 of Swords. That was my card for the year last year. And I not once saw that she was reading a book. So, and I'm like, I love my books, and I just love that that was that whole trusting that journey. So that was just hilarious. It's funny how just working with tarot, sometimes we can see a card 1,000 times and it just speaks differently. So, you know, there's more to it. So thank you, everybody. It's been brilliant, and I've got so much from this session.
Oh, good.
I won't worry about going into detail. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Michelle. All right, so hopefully everyone can take a bit of something from that. I know I certainly can, particularly with regards to just the fact that maybe do nothing until you're absolutely 100% sure. And then, like you say, it flows, it comes easy. Anything that feels even in the slightest bit of a rub or a bit difficult is just seems, in my mind, it's just not meant to be. And that's from years now of experience of that. Even, you know, when you think you've kind of got over that and like, oh, I can start to push a bit now. Nope. The decisions come when they come, and they're not ours to make, maybe. We are kind of we channel it at some point, the choice becomes, the unknown suddenly becomes known, and then I don't know, then the decision gets made and it doesn't feel like any kind of effort. So that's definitely what I'll be taking from this. So we have 20 minutes. So do you guys want to do a meditation, and we'll do one about kind of moving into that unknown and maybe not even being able to make a choice, but to have an understanding that we will know when we know. So I'll channel it anyway, as I tend to do, and see what comes through. So if you want to turn your screens off, that's fine. And we'll see where we go. So whenever you're ready, if you lay down or just sit nice and comfortable, close your eyes. And begin with your 3 breaths again. Lovely, full, deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. When you have taken your breaths and you're nice and relaxed, I want you to bring your mind to a field. So you're in a field of wheat, which, if you've ever been in a field of wheat in the winter, it just looks like lines of grass, almost like somebody's come and planted separate grass plants that are kind of long and spindly. And I've walked through fields like that many times over the past few years with the dog, and every year I think, oh, somebody's planted grass. Except come spring, I realize it's not really long-lasting long grass, it's wheat, and I don't know why I can never quite get that into my mind, but I think I'll remember it next year. But the thing with the wheat that you're walking past in your mind is that it's long and it's spindly and it's grass-like. It's not really doing anything. It's just there, being green, being long, being very flat to the earth. You can still see the soil, you can still see the stones. Maybe you can see a worm wiggling between the little wheat plants. And you're just walking by it, and it's perhaps a little path going straight through the wheat, and it goes on and on and on for as far as your eye can see. And it feels really cozy, really comfortable. It's maybe a little bit chilly with it being winter, but that's okay, because you're just surrounded by all these beautiful plants, all these baby plants. They're so kind of unknown. They don't look like they're going to do anything. And for a really long time, as you walk and you walk, they're not really doing anything. They're not really growing. They're not really changing. They're not really shifting. They're just there. And you're just walking alongside them, observing them. Maybe a bird flies overhead. And then just bring your attention back to the wheat again. And maybe it's got a centimetre longer. It's still just sort of spindling out on the ground, not really doing anything, not really taking up much space, looking actually entirely unimpressive. And there's something in you that thinks, oh, wouldn't it be nice if this was a pumpkin, or this was a ear of corn, or something that feels more abundant? But of course it's not an ear of corn and it's not a pumpkin. It's just a spindly baby piece of wheat that's not really doing anything. It's just small and green. And whilst you might wish it was something else, it's not something else. And as you begin to continue your walk, looking at the wheat, you notice it's a pretty colour. It's a fresh, bold green. And it looks really striking next to the brown of the earth and the soil. And it's okay, because you can just be here right now in this moment with this wheat, with this potential, with the unknown of what this really is, uncertainty, just being okay with that. And of course, you wouldn't want to change anything. You wouldn't want to bend down and pluck the wheat up and out, or replant it, or replace it with something else, because it has its own life and it has its own way, and you simply have to trust. So in your mind, just carry on walking down this long, long path of wheat. And look up to the sky and notice the cloud formations. It's starting to warm up a little now. Perhaps you can feel gentle sun on your skin, maybe a slight drizzle of rain coming down that feels peaceful, nothing too soaking, just relaxing and easy. And then you look back to the wheat, and it's no longer spindly, grass-like looking. It's suddenly got a bit of structure, it's got a bit of form. It's longer, it's more solid. It's reaching up to the sky. It's no longer grass. It's definitely becoming something, and you don't have to know what it is, nor do you have to pluck it out or experiment on it or take it home and boil it to see whether it does anything, or to try and figure out what it is or where it's going or how it affects you. But you just notice that it's standing taller, it's growing. It's becoming something that's beyond your knowing, and that's okay. So you just continue to keep going, just admiring the fact that things are shifting and changing, and there's nothing that you need to do about it whatsoever other than to observe it and to sit with it and to see it. And take a nice deep breath in and release it, and continue to walk down between the ears of wheat. And then as you look down, you notice it's now starting to bush up a little bit, so that occasionally you catch a piece on your leg as it thickens on the earth and the ears start to grow. And you note tiny little buds of seeds beginning to form on the ends of each wheat plant. And it's very green still, and it's very juvenile, and it's not even fully formed at all. So continue to walk, continue to enjoy this never-ending field of wheat and all the possibility and potential it holds, without having to do anything with it, without having to reap it or harvest it or even sow it. You're just there observing it. And continuing on down, maybe looking out into the distance to notice just how far the wheat field goes, on and on and on and on and on. And as you look behind you, you can see you've come so far. You can see perhaps in the distance behind you, your house or your village or your town. It's far, far, far in the distance, and you've come quite some way now. But that's okay. You feel safe and held and expansive. And as you look back down at the wheat, it's now really bushing out. It's grown and it's strong and it's tall. It's as tall as your knee, maybe even higher. And it's very green still. But the little buds on the top, the seeds, are all fully formed. And the path has become much smaller. You have to be quite careful where you tread, so as not to stand on the wheat and to keep on your little path. Careful you don't trip over it. So gazing down at the floor and walking along, feeling the sun warming up, feeling safe, feeling held, feeling protected, and looking at this beautiful wheat and recognizing it's not ready. Often in life, we try to pluck a decision from the air before we're ready, when in fact the unknown is something certainly worth waiting for. And if you, in your imagination, even tried to tug at the wheat right now, it wouldn't want to come. It would feel really hard. It would resist you because it's not ready and you're not ready. And there was nothing you could do with something that isn't ready. Even if you managed to pull it up by the roots, it would simply die. And whatever purpose you had for it, it would be redundant. So it's time to be patient and easy and calm and continue walking down through the field, gazing upon the wheat. And you look away for a second, perhaps at a beautiful oak tree that you're passing by, noticing the shape of its leaves, the thickness of its trunk, the beauty as it reaches up to the sky. Imagining how many little animals live in the oak tree, in its leaves, in its trunk, in its roots. And all the tree does is stand still, allowing all that life to come to it. And we think, perhaps we could stand still more often and allow life to come to us. Allow all that magnificent medicine and manifestation to just appear, and just trust that everything we need can come close enough to us that we don't need to jump into anything or out of anything or towards anything. Just being where we are in our space, in our skin, is quite enough. So passing the oak tree now, looking down to the ground, and the wheat is bright and it's bold and it's tall and it's thick and it's starting to turn yellow. Just at the ends, just at the tips, it's green and it's yellow. And you wonder if it's now time to pluck that wheat from the ground, but something tells you no, it's not ready yet. Patience, temperance, calm. It won't be long. All good things come to those who wait. Recognizing that there's a season for everything, and that even the most important decisions have this perfect moment, and you don't know it till you know it. So there's no plucking up of green wheat, not even green wheat with a little bit of gold on it. We're going to wait and keep walking and walking. And as you're walking, you might imagine just reaching your hands out, because the wheat is so tall now that you can run your fingertips along it. And so as you run your fingertips along it, you feel yourself connecting with the wheat, with its power and its majesty that's been growing nearly all year. Maybe it's been growing 9-10 months until it got to this point, to this stature, till it's wearing its crown and it's golden and beautiful. And as you reach out to it, you feel this divine connection with yourself and this inner knowing, your inner truth that understands the unknown, even if your mind and your emotion don't understand the unknown. And you recognize that this is your speciality, to be at peace, to wait, to hold space, and to know that when you know, you'll know. And until you know, you don't know. And that's absolutely fine. And you can feel the wheat almost in your heart. Feeling its energy reverberating through you. Knowing that not long now till the moment changes, the time shifts, something happens, and the wheat will be ripe for plucking. And as you look down to the ground, you can almost perceptibly see the wheat start to change color. And maybe before your eyes, it starts to turn gold and crisp and pale and dry. And all of that green just evaporates out into the earth, perhaps ready for next year's batch of wheat, leaving you with this beautiful, expansive golden horizon in every direction you look. Wheat just waving in a gentle breeze, gold and white and pale and blonde. And just breathing it in. And now the wheat is ripe for plucking. And you might just reach down and just choose one stalk, one stem, one that calls to you, one that gives its permission, one that says it's yours and yours alone, one that represents your own personal growth, one that represents the things you wish to reap within your life right now, the things that you wish to gain and manifest and feel within your existence. And as you find that one stem, reach down, take hold of it, and pluck it up towards yourself. And it's easy and it falls into your hands. Hold it against your chest and feel its energy, feeling its peace and its power, and knowing that the time was right, it was perfect for you to take this for yourself as an understanding of when it is time to reap and when it is time to sow and when it is time to simply wait. And I want you to imagine that you take this piece of wheat and you just literally implant it into your heart. So holding it against you, it almost melts in, it moves into your energy, into your body, into your soul, into your spirit, to allow itself to be with you, to help inform your decisions and your choices going forward. And just breathe into that as you feel it ripple out through you. Trusting that the wisdom that it gives you is one of knowing, one of transformation, but transformation not just for the sake of transformation, but transformation that comes with time, with knowing, with patience, and with certainty. Just be with this moment, looking out at these beautiful fields of wheat that go on for as far as you can see, and recognizing that each and every stem of wheat represents another choice you'll have to make, another decision, another way of thinking, another piece of growth, another understanding. And they're all there, ripe for the taking, but you can only take them when the time is right. And in the meantime, there is waiting, and there is watering, and there is patience, and there's walking, and there's being, and there's breathing. And so just breathe it in. And now just imagine that you're leaving the wheat field, just transporting back to your house, to your home, to your chair or your bed, bringing with you whatever wisdom has been granted, the power of your little piece of wheat, which is tucked up tight inside of you now. And just breathing into the wisdom of Mother Earth and the signs that she gives us, and the knowings and understandings. And take a nice, deep, refreshing breath. Maybe imagine that you're a little piece of wheat and send your roots deep down into the earth. Wherever you are at on your cycle, whether you're a seed or a grassy piece of wheat or a green piece of wheat or a golden piece of wheat ready for plucking, it doesn't matter. Just imagine your roots going deep, deep down into the earth and trusting that when you know, you'll know. And until then, you'll wait and you'll blow in the breeze. So bringing yourself back to your room, to your body with breath, wiggling your toes, wiggling your fingers, having a little stretch. And whenever you're ready, you can switch your screens back on. I hope everyone liked that. I was kind of inspired by my dog walks. I was in the fields the past couple of days, and the wheat has turned golden and yellow mostly. It's still a little bit green, but some of it is really quite yellow. And I've been thinking a lot about the things that we reap and the sow and the decisions we made, and how from year to year this changes as well. So for example, where I'm at this year was completely different to where I was at this time last year, but the wheat was still the same. And what I was reaping then was very different from what I'm reaping now. But yeah, and I guess there's choices and decisions sort of sown through all of that. So I hope everyone liked that. I pulled us a card while we were doing it. This one came out, specialization. So we have this incredible woman, and she's like juggling butterflies or something there. We've got the moon, we have plants and fire, and this heart that looks like earth with roses around it and roots, and yeah, what else? Lots of flowers. It's beautiful. So maybe for us to think about, what's our specialization? Who are we becoming? How can we grow? How can we throw our butterflies up into the air and let them fly? And very earthy. So maybe being in nature will help with our decisions and choices. I always think that nature kind of gives us a nice reflection as to where we're at with ourselves and life, and that can help inform our choices too. Okay, so anyone got any thoughts, feelings, feedback before we finish on the meditation, or anything else at all?
No, I just want to say thank you. But I can't see anybody because you've all frozen.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you all. Well, I can hear you, Alice.
Oh, good. I think, yeah, most people are muted.
Yeah. But thank you. That was really lovely. And just the image of walking in the wheat fields is something that I really love doing anyway. And so it really resonated.
Oh, good. Good. I'm glad. And maybe we can all take a little adventure out into the wheat fields at some point when we're not isolating, Annie, and pluck ourselves a piece of wheat, stick it on an altar somewhere.
I think I'm definitely going to do that.
And I know, Michelle, you might not have that kind of wheat at the moment, or even maybe at all. I'm sure you do have wheat in Australia, but maybe you can find some equivalent to go pluck up.
I'll go to the park. I live on the river, so we are in lockdown, fortunately, in this part of Australia now. So no, I'll go for a walk with the dog and up to the park, and I'm sure something will just jump out at me.
Yeah,
There'll be something waiting for me on the path. That was beautiful. Thank you.
lovely.
I love that journey through the wheat fields, not having ever done that myself. So it was really a beautiful journey. Alice, thank you.
I'll post a picture. I took a picture this morning when I was with the dog, because I'm quite conscious that the farmers are probably going to come and chop it all down soon. So I will, I'll share that so you can kind of get a vision of.
It always makes me think of that scene at the beginning of Gladiator, the film Gladiator, with Russell Crowe, where he's walking through the fields and his hands are in the wheat.
It just made me think of Superman, you know, the where the boys in the
Yes.
God.
Oh, in the at the
That was
beginning, you mean with the barn?
terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, that terrible. Even
Yeah.
now, it's sort of stuff of nightmares, really. But yeah.
I actually kept thinking, is anyone allergic to wheat? Because
Well, that
I
would be
wasn't sure if that was.
unfortunate, wouldn't it?
I
Well,
know.
we're not eating it, so.
No, taking it into your heart though. Oh,
Yeah, I
that was
should have a
beautiful.
disclaimer. All right, then, everyone.
Free meditation.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Right. Keep
Took me off,
being
I'll
here.
start coughing.
Oh, bless you. Go get some sleep and some rest.
Oh,
Feel better soon.
yes, thank you. I'll take all the healing energy I can get right now.
Absolutely, I bet.
Oh, well, thank you so much, and have a lovely evening, everybody, or day.
Yes.
You're Michelle. I always forget you're on the opposite side to everybody else.
And it's
Like,
such a mind mess, isn't it? Because it's
yeah.
Thursday here, it's Wednesday there. Is that right?
You to the
Yeah.
end of Wednesday, yeah.
Mhm.
Today, Wednesday. Yeah.
Yeah.
Time is
All
a
right.
construct, isn't it? In the
It
end, we're all
really is.
connected. It is. It is. I hope you everything goes well for you, Annie, and the family.
I think
Yeah.
we'll all be fine. We're just in our enforced little bit of quiet now, making sure everybody has got time to get well and get us sorted, and then we'll hopefully
Is there a little bit of within you, Annie, that you like not having to be around your children for a little bit?
Oh,
Is there a little bit of? I mean that with love too. But.
Yeah, no, but it's been a good thing for my daughter because she was feeling very overwhelmed with lots of things at school at the end of term. So for her, it's been a real blessing to have some space and time. And my son hates it because he's the most sociable person ever. So he's driving everyone insane because he's just crashing about the house looking for entertainment. But I've had to work anyway this week because my colleague who normally does my the same job as me, and we tag team each other's annual leave. She's on annual leave, and then I've been sick, so I've had to work anyway because she's not there to pick up those cases. So I've just been hiding in my room working, which is not a bad thing really, because I think I was just going out of my mind, just sitting around feeling like crap. So
we'll feel better soon. Hopefully, maybe you'll join us Monday and you'll be less croaky. And
I think I'll be absolutely immeasurably better by Monday. I will look forward to seeing you all then.
All right then. Right, I'm going to dash. Thank you for being here, everyone, and see you again soon.
Thanks,
Take
Alice.
care.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.